My name is Barbara, and I'm the eldest of two daughters, and for as long as I can remember, I've carried the label of being the responsible one. It wasn't something anyone officially assigned to me, but it settled onto my shoulders early and never really left. I was the child who thought before speaking, who finished tasks without being reminded, who learned quickly that self-reliance earned quiet approval while noise earned affection. My younger sister, Michelle, was everything I was not. Where I was calm and inward, she was loud and magnetic. Our home pulsed with her energy, her laughter echoing through the halls, her music blaring from her room, her presence filling every space. Mom and Dad orbited around her effortlessly, drawn in by her charm, indulging her moods, laughing at her jokes. The air always seemed warmer wherever Michelle stood. I, meanwhile, learned to disappear gracefully. I gravitated toward quiet corners of the house, curling up with novels or spreading my schoolbooks across the dining table long after everyone else had gone to bed. Silence felt safe. Focus felt rewarding. While Michelle thrived on attention, I thrived on progress. Birthdays and holidays made our differences impossible to ignore. Michelle would tear through wrapping paper, squealing with delight over fashionable outfits, shiny gadgets, or whatever new trend had captured her interest that month. The room would erupt in laughter and applause. I, on the other hand, accepted envelopes with cash or modest gifts and quietly tucked them away. I treated money like a promise to my future, not something to be spent impulsively. "What are you saving for this time, Barbara?" Dad would ask, a trace of pride in his voice, though his puzzled expression suggested he didn't quite understand me. "A laptop for studying," I'd explain calmly. "The library computers are always full." He would nod slowly, clearly, trying to relate, but I could tell my answer didn't fit the image he had of what a teenage girl should want. Michelle, however, never had to explain herself. She was a storm of trends and demands. "Mom, did you see the new iPhone?" Literally. "Everyone at school has one." "I need it," she'd announce with confidence. And just like that, it would appear. No lectures, no budgeting, no waiting. I still remember the day I finally bought my laptop. Months of research, comparison charts, and careful saving had led up to that moment. My hands were shaking with pride as I carried it home, convinced this achievement meant something. At dinner, I placed it gently on the table and said, "Look, I finally bought it." "That's nice, dear," Mom replied distractedly, barely lifting her eyes before turning to Michelle. "Oh, Michelle, tell us about your trip to the mall today." And just like that, the moment slipped away. My accomplishment dissolved into background noise, replaced by stories of sales racks and makeup counters. It wasn't that my parents didn't love me. I knew they did, just differently. Michelle was the sun in our family's universe, bright and impossible to ignore. I was a distant planet, steady and silent, moving along my own orbit without applause. As we grew older, the divide between us only deepened. Michelle experimented constantly new hair colors, bold outfits, fleeting passions. I stayed practical, loyal to my simple ponytail and worn-in jeans. The library became my refuge, a place where effort mattered more than personality. When college approached, I gave everything I had. Late nights blurred into early mornings as I rewrote essays, hunted down scholarships, and prepared relentlessly for exams. When the acceptance letter finally arrived with a full scholarship, I felt something I'd never felt before: validation. I ran into the kitchen, breathless, waving the letter. "Mom! Dad! I got accepted with a full scholarship." Mom glanced up briefly while steadying Michelle's chin. "That's nice, dear. Michelle, don't move, I'm fixing your eyeliner." "Well done, Barbara," Dad said without looking up from his newspaper. We expected nothing less. The words stung, but the tone hurt more. Still, alone in my room, clutching that letter, I made a promise to myself. This was my way out. My chance to step beyond Michelle's shadow. Michelle, meanwhile, barely managed to graduate. When her report card came home filled with disappointing grades, I waited for consequences that never came. Instead, our parents rushed to comfort her. "Oh, sweetheart, don't worry," Mom said gently. College isn't for everyone. You've got so many other talents, Dad added warmly. You'll find your way. I couldn't stop myself. Are you serious? She barely passed. Barbara, don't be cruel, Mom snapped. Your sister has gifts you don't understand. I said nothing after that. What was the point? No matter what I achieved, Michelle would always be protected. College gave me something my home never had: fairness. For the first time, effort mattered. Ambition was admired. I immersed myself completely, determined to make every sacrifice worthwhile. Years passed quickly. Michelle jumped from one beauty course to another, finishing none of them. I graduated with honors. I secured a position at a prestigious company. Moving into my own apartment was bittersweet freedom wrapped in loneliness. Michelle still lived at home, adored and cushioned, while I stood alone, ready to face the world. On my own terms, work was demanding, but I thrived. Within a year, I earned a promotion to team leader. I called home immediately. Oh, that's nice, Barbara, Mom said. But guess what? Michelle met a wonderful man. Such a good family we're. Thrilled. The conversation shifted effortlessly, my achievement swallowed once again. I didn't stop. I worked harder, I rose faster. Eventually, I became the youngest department head the company had ever had. When Mr. Paul, the company owner, praised my performance and offered me an apartment at a discounted rate, I nearly cried. Holding the keys felt unreal. To celebrate, I hosted a modest housewarming. Plastic tables, simple chairs, disposable plates, but everything was arranged with care. It wasn't extravagant, it was earned. My coworkers arrived first, kind and supportive. Then my family entered. Michelle's eyes swept the room, a barely concealed smirk tugging at her lips. As the night went on, every compliment directed at me was rerouted. Oh, did Barbara mention Michelle's modeling gig? Mom interrupted one colleague. She's just naturally gifted, Dad added proudly. My coworkers exchanged awkward glances. Michelle soaked it in, giggling. When they finally left, relief washed over me. Lavra turned sharply. Barbara, what was that? I shrugged weakly. That's just how they are. That's not normal, David said gently. Are you okay? Their concern nearly broke me. I forced a smile, deflected, offered drinks. Alone in the kitchen, I swallowed my tears, refusing to let my family steal this moment from me. After that disastrous housewarming, I buried myself in work, determined to move forward. Months passed, and slowly it turned my apartment into a home, a place I could truly be proud of every piece. A furniture and splash of color was a testament to my independence and hard work. One sunny Monday, I decided to treat myself to something I'd been saving for: a car. It wasn't flashy, just a really able sedan. But it was mine, bought with my own money. Driving it home, a wave of pride washed over me. This car was a symbol of everything I'd accomplished, I hadn't planned to tell my family, but news spread fast that evening. Michelle called, her voice cheerful as always. Barbara, he heard. You bought a car, that's nice, she said, her tone dripping with insincerity. You're really doing things the hard way, all this working and saving. Its sound accessory. Her words made my stomach tighten. What do you mean? I asked. Welsh said, as if explaining something obvious. A woman's main job is to marry well, find a man who will take care of you, and give you everything you need. Why work yourself to death when you could have it all handed to you? I was speechless. Was she serious? Michelle, that's not how I see things, I finalized. I want to earn what I have. I'm proud of what I've accomplished. Shelled, a light tinkling sound that grated on my nerves. Oh, Barbara, always difficult one. Well, you'll see. I'll show you how it's done. Before I could respond, she hung up. I stared at the phone, a mix of anger and disbelief running inside me. How could we see life so differently? A few months later, Michelle called again, her voice brimming with excitement. Barbara, guess what I'm getting married. His name is Nicholas Andes. Absolutely loaded. His parents are paying for everything. The wedding is going to be stunning. She launched into a detailed description of the dresses, flowers, and guest list, but all I felt was an emptiness inside. This was Watch had been working toward her idea of success. The wedding day came faster than expected. I stood in a grand hall surrounded by glittering guests. Feeling out of place, Michelle looked radiant in her designer gown, and our parents beamed with pride as I sipped champagne. I couldn't help but wonder if they had ever looked at me with such pride. Had the ever been this happy about anything Geet achieved. Driving my modest car back to my apartment that night, I questioned whether I'd made the wrong choices. Was Michelle right? Had I chosen the harder path for nothing? But then I thought about my job, my achievements, and the pride I felt knowing I had earned everything. On my own, no, I decided my path might be harder, but it was minute that made all the difference. Life settled into a routine after Michael's wedding. My work kept me busy, but my mother's calls became a regular and unwelcome interruption. Barbara, darling mom, would start, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. You won't believe what Michelle's been up to. I'd brace myself as she launched into yet another story about Michelle's fabulous life. One day, after an especially exhausting call, I couldn't hold back anymore. Mom, that's great for Michelle, I said, frustration sweeping into my voice, but don't y'all want to know what's going on in my life? There was a pause, then Mom said in a patronizing tone, oh honey, of course, Wecker, but you really should learn from your sister. Be more glamorous. Why work so hard for so little when you could have it all? A few weeks later, I received an invitation to Michelle and Nicholas Hausch's warm party for their new luxury apartment, a gift from his parents. Naturally, that night, standing outside of their building, I felt small. Taking a deep breath, I smoothed my simple dress and walked in. The apartment was breathtaking. Every surface sparkled, and every piece of furniture looked like it cost more than my yearly salary. My parents marveled at every detail. I tried to stay in the background, but Michelle spotted me immediately. She approached with a champagne flute in hand, her eyes scanning me critically. Barbara, so glad you could make it, she said sweetly, though her tone was anything but I happy hour. Taking notes. This is how a housewarming should be done. None of that plastic furniture and disposable dishes nonsense like at your place. My cheeks burned. Michelle, that's, but she didn't wait to hear the rest, already flitting off to dazzle other guests. Weeks turned into months, and Michelle continued to flaunt her lavish lifestyle, then only ordinary. Saturday, everything changed. Mom called, her voice shaky. Barbara, it's Michelle, she's back home. Nicholas left her, he said. She's too shallow, too focused on spending his money. He even called her stupid, can you believe it? And she signed a prenup. Shahaz. Nothing. A wave of emotions hit Meshach. Concern, and if I was honest, a flicker of vindication. I quickly pushed aside the flicker of vindication. Ashamed of myself. She's my sister, she needs help grabbing me keys. I said I'm coming over. When I arrived at my parents' house, the scene inside felt like stepping into a war zone. Michelle's piercing screams echoed from the driveway. Inside, chaos reigned. Was in the living room, mascara striking her tear-stained face, her designer clothes crumpled and unkempt. She was throwing whatever she could gather hands on, vases, picture frame cushions. He can't do this to me, she shrieked, her voice raw with despair. Andrich, I'm Michelle, I'm beautiful, I'm perfect. Mom and Dad hovered near, be frantic and helpless. Sweetie, please. Mom pleaded, her voice soothing but strained. We'll figure this out. Dad will buy you a new dress, won't you, dear? Dad nodded eagerly. Of course, Princess, anything you want. I stood silently observing this surreal display, feeling like I had stepped into an alternate reality. This and how life is supposed to work. Is it? Days turned into weeks, and Michaela's tantrums became the new norm. She would cry for hours, scream until she was hoarse, and demand extravagant gifts to ease her pain. My parents, eager to please her, indulged her every whim. One evening, after yet another meltdown, I ventured a suggestion. Maybe Michelle should consider getting a job. It might give her something to focus on and help her understand the value of money. The room fell silent. Then Michelle's face twisted in anger. A job like you, slaving away every day like some peasant, she spat, her voice venomous. She burst into tears and stormed upstairs, slamming her door so hard the house seemed to shake. Before I could process what had just happened, my prince turned on me. How dare you, Mom hissed, her face pale with fury. Your sister is going through a terrible time and you suggest she lower herself? I didn't mean it like that. I tried to explain, but they weren't listening. Get out, Dad said coldly, his voice cutting through me like a knife. Get out of this house right now. Mom pointed at the door. Out, and don't come back until you can be supportive of your sister. Numb, I grabbed me purse and walked out back in the safety of my apartment. A wave of emotion overwhelmed me, sadness for being cast out, anger at my parents' blindness, and unexpectedly a sense of relief. For the first time I truly saw how toxic my family's dynamics had been. Life has a way of surprising you when you least expect it. Just days after the blow-up, I received incredible news. I had won a company contest. The price was a 5 mon all expenses Paid cruise around the world in a rare moment of optimism. I called my parents hoping to share the good news. Mom, Dad, you won't believe it, I want to cruise around the world, Silenza greeted me on the other end. Then my mother's cold voice shattered the quiet. Barbara, how can you be so selfish? Your sister is going through a terrible time and you're bragging about vacations. I'm not bragging, I said softly, my heart sinking. I just thought enough. Mom cut me off sharply. If you had any decency, you'd give that ticket to it. She needs it, Marethan. You can stay home and work like you always do. Something inside me broke. Years of frustration boiled over. No, I said firmly, surprising even myself. I want this trip. I earned it. I'm not giving it up because Michelle made bad choices. I'm going. The next few weeks flew by as he prepared for the trip. On the day of departure, I did something I'd never done before. I turned off my phone for the first time in years. I felt free. That cruise was everything I had dreamed of. I watched breathtaking sunsets in Malta, explored ancient ruins in Romania, and wandered the bustling streets of Singapore. For 4 incredible months, it was just Barbara, not the responsible their sister, not the familiar disappointing. Just me. But all good things must end. When I returned, reality hit. I turned on my phone expecting average of messages, but there were only a few missed calls from my parents. As I approached my apartment, I heard noise inside. Panic set in. Had someone broken in? I opened the door cautiously, and there she was, Michelle, sprawled on my couch, surrounded by shopping bags and empty takeout containers. Michelle, I exclaimed, what are you doing here? She barely glanced at me. Oh, you're back finally. How did you get in? I demanded, anger bubbling up. She rolled her eyes. Didn't be so dramatic. I used the spare keys Mom and Dad had. I needed a change of scenery. Everything at home reminded me. No, I stared at her, stunned. This was too much. I'm going to the store, I muttered, needing to clear my head. When I reached the parking lot, my car was gone. Panic turned to fury as I called my parents. Mom, Dad, where's my car? There was a pause before Mom spoke, her voice unnaturally cheerful. Oh, Barbara, your sister needed cheering up, so we sold it. We used the money to take her shopping again to the spa. Isn't that thoughtful? I felt the world spin. You what? It's just a car, Dad said dismissively. What's ours is ours. Don't be selfish. Selfish, that word snapped something inside me. You stole my car, invaded my home, and I'm selfish. I want my money back. Now their response was instant and cruel. They called me heartless, ungrateful, at a disappointment, but for the first time their words didn't hurt me. The next day, I hired a lawyer. It was a long exhausting battle, but in the end I won. Me parents were forced to sell their house to repay me. Furious, they told anyone who would listen that I was Theveline.